Women's Equality Day is all about celebrating equal rights, but it's important to note that when women first won the right to vote more than a century ago, equal rights weren't so equal. The basics of Women's Equality Day are easy enough to understand. We celebrate it because on August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment was certified, making it illegal to deny citizens the right to vote based on sex. Here's what you might not know. The blanket use of the word women when discussing what the 19th Amendment changed is misleading. Millions of women, those who weren't white, were effectively left out when it came to gaining the right to vote in 1920, despite black women's involvement in the suffragette movement. Some white suffragettes also viewed it as a great injustice that they did not have the right to vote, even though black men legally did. What appeared to be a fight for equality on the surface had more than a few racist caveats tacked on, creating a stark contradiction in what suffragettes like Susan B. Anthony were arguing was morally right. This history should be a reminder to all of us that selective equality that only affords benefits to a privileged few is simply another form of inequality in disguise, Jocelyn Frye, a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, told NPR. Thus, it is critical to have an accurate understanding of the history being commemorated by Women's Equality Day, so that while we celebrate the progress achieved, we also recognize the inadequacy of this progress, especially for women of color. Does that mean it's problematic to observe Women's Equality Day? Speaking to numerous women of color who are voting rights advocates, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. In fact, the question itself might be the wrong one altogether. While gaining the right to vote for white women was a journey that ended in the fall of 1920, it would take other disenfranchised groups decades longer to gain equal access to the polls. Black women were largely prevented from voting due to individual state laws, harassment and violence, and other racist barriers designed to control which groups had political power. The 24th Amendment in 1962 helped to chip away at voting equality by barring states from tying the right to vote to poll taxes, but many people of color did not fully gain the legal right to vote until the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which outright barred racial discrimination at the polls. For example, black men were legally allowed to vote due to the passing of the 15th Amendment in 1870, but they faced an extremely difficult time actually exercising that right in practice. But even the Voting Rights Act wasn't foolproof protection for marginalized communities. The 1975 extension of the Voting Rights Act was a huge factor in combating discrimination based on language, which had played a role for decades in the Latinx community being able to exercise their right to vote.